here in the perimeter, there are no stars. Out here, we is stoned, immaculate.
Hello and welcome. This is the C86 show. I'm David Eastaugh. As you know, we love a special guest. This week it's not just one, two musicians, songwriters I spoke to very recently. It's the one and only Kevin Bache and also Katie Scaife to find out more about life, love, poetry and all that other groovy stuff. They are in a combo, a band, titled The Lovely Basement, and they've got a new album which is just coming out, 2025, which is titled Lowlands. I will put a link in the notes below to their Bandcamp page. This is coming out on the Precious Recordings of London. They've already released quite a few albums, which you'll be able to discover. And also, just to say that Kevin was involved in an 80s indie band titled The Raw Herbs. So we do talk about that as well in this fascinating interview. So after several minutes of interesting but casual chat, we get down to the exciting subject of the early formative years. Katie, it's over to you.
Well, my first LP I ever bought was David Bowie Diamond Dogs, but I grew up in Toronto, so we had a slightly different, I think, ecosystem than maybe you did. We got a lot of American music. We got a small amount of Canadian content, but we also got some British music. But it wasn't. I was just talking about this earlier, actually. There was only eventually, when I was a teenager, one Canadian radio station that played what might be broadly called alternative music. So stuff that might be New Romantics or punk or yeah, I mean, I was born in 1965, so we're broadly contemporaries. And so I really, yeah, David Bowie's always been somebody I really admire, but the Velvet Underground also. And as a teenager, stuff like what we would call the English Beat and the Specials and all that, and Psychedelic Furs are all bands I used to go and see in those days. And then, you get a bit older and you start going back through time and starting to appreciate artists that I'm, and the Beatles and stuff. But
Yes. So when you got to that ripe old age of 16, which would have been 1981, I'm doing the maths here, did you leave school or do college at that stage?
I went. What I do? No, I went to university and slacked off doing a medieval studies major. So yeah,
God, that's very good.
history and English.
That's very cool. What was the first gig you went to, by the way?
Alice Cooper.
Nice. Was that in the mid-70s?
That's a very good question. Probably late 70s. Yeah, at
Right.
Maple Leaf Gardens in Toronto.
Yes. And did you have any musical aspirations at this stage in life?
Um, I've always liked. I got my first guitar when I was 15, and I always liked messing about with it. And I started being in bands mostly as a bass player from probably about 16 or 17. But aspirations might be a bit of a big word. I was just having a good time.
Yes, but you would have been that perfect age, we're very similar, aren't we, where the indie pop scene started to blossom, didn't it? 83, the year of the Smiths. I put that as a major milestone. For 5 years we had the Smiths. They were just everything in the UK, not, well, just to a certain segment of society. But was indie pop something that came on your radar after the world of Alice Cooper?
Oh yeah, I mean, I sort of remember graduating from sort of what was broadly prog and mainstream rock into something that was more a bit indie and really enjoying discovering new bands. And I think, I mean, I guess they're sort of mainstream now, but Kate Bush or whatever. But the just kind of finding that place in music and yeah, and I really appreciate that there was a real sort of DIY quality to it. So you didn't have to be a great musician. You just kind of got together with your friends and made a noise.
Yes, and how did you navigate then into the late 80s and 90s? Because there's a huge shift in music, isn't there, at that point? A lot of those bands that we loved so much broke up, never to speak again and just go to court with each other. And then, ecstasy comes along and then there's a whole wave of new kind of indie, well, just in music, basically.
I guess is I got really into maybe like more the 4AD scene, which I guess was a lot of throwing muses and even Dead Can Dance and all sorts of things, Alex Chilton, and you get those labels like Rough Trade or Matador or 4AD, which in those days you would just buy anything those labels put out and be excited.
Yes, well, absolutely. We love that. We love the label. No one would understand the horror that we had when Sonic Youth signed to a major, did we? Just it was just it broke everyone's spirit. And Kevin, what about your musical world? When were you born, and what was your early years?
I'm 61, so I'm a senior here.
Yes.
But my first record was the last Goon show of all, which obviously set me on my musical career completely. Um, I grew up in the West Midlands, so kind of the West Midlands, you really can't escape rock. So I kind of really loved a kind of Quo and Zeppelin kind of when I was growing up. That's kind of stuff I liked. Which the Quo stuff oddly seems kind of akin to punk because if you can't play guitar well, you can always play status quo, and then kind of the move into punk was kind of easy from that. So I
Yes.
had the joy of working in a record shop in Bridgnorth in Shropshire when I was kind of a teenager. And I was listening to Peel at that point, and we used to go down to Rough Trade and pick singles up. Kind of, we'd go and buy Swell Map stuff and Glaxo Babies and all sorts of bits and bobs. And we actually had people coming from Wolverhampton, big city, to Bridgnorth, small market town, because we had such a kind of good indie kind of punk section. So that was kind of fun. First band I saw was Thin Lizzy, where I actually got mugged going to buy the tickets in Wolverhampton.
Excellent.
So I don't have fond memories of Wolverhampton at all. But I think for me, the real kind of move into stuff where you feel like you lock into music kind of started with I got my first Dole check and bought XTC and the kind of first Blondie album and kind of went to see the Ramones, courtesy of Her Majesty's government giving me welfare. The Ramones in Wolverhampton, in Birmingham. But moving to London, because I moved down there to do a degree, kind of just coming across bands like Orange Juice and the Go-Betweens, and that just kindled something. And I had a flatmate who had the live '69 Velvets album, which was just like a revelation. That was just, it felt like moving kind of to the city, just so much more kind of music flooded in, which was just
Yes. So you would, you would have been a perfect because I was a bit too young for punk, so that just passed me by. And we lived in the countryside, so actually Quo were massively big and important and sacred. I mean, you couldn't say anything about the Quo without being beaten up, and you couldn't even like mod or two tone because that was like wow. Even if you quite liked the beat and the specials and madness, it was like you wouldn't admit it because you would just get thumped and chased down the road by bikers, greasy little bikers on their 250 Yamaha, and all that malarkey. So yes,
recognized you.
pardon?
I said, I thought I recognized you.
Yes, well, my brother was into prog. He was 7 years older than me, and he was into prog rock, and he had all those classic albums, but he also had Deep Purple and Black Sabbath in there, which I thought were just awesome records, actually.
Yeah.
And they
I
still,
wish somebody had played me Noi back in that time because that just feels like how come I only heard Noi for the first time about 10 years ago, and which is insane. I mean, you've got this kind of prog band who are just doing so much really cool stuff around sound and sounding like Stereolab at times.
yes.
But they never got to Shropshire.
They didn't, but we there was a Tangerine Dream album in there and the solo work of Rick Wakeman, which doesn't really count. But Tangerine Dream and Patrick Moraz was kind of there as a certain, but nothing too far over on that front. Then what degree did you do back in London in the early 80s?
I did a history and politics degree. So
What university or college was that?
I
Or
went to the
politics?
Polytechnic of Central London.
Brilliant. Yes,
So,
so you were there at that time when there was like Alan McGee's The Living Room was kind of there, and those little clubs. Did you pick up on that indie because you had swell maps, which was very cool, wasn't it?
yeah, we because my kind of cohort at college included Bill and Andy from the Loft. So they're big mates. Our street, ended up living in Leytonstone in a short life house after a squat. So we had kind of lots of bands kind of around us. Jack Ruby's were just down the road. Like every other house felt like it was a band in kind of Leytonstone. So we, yeah, on a Saturday night, you went to the living room. It was as simple as that. What you did is you put on your dark shades, practiced looking miserable, and went down there to watch whatever. And it was great. It was absolutely fantastic because you just went knowing you'd see something that was kind of decent.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
At that time, I was in a band called The Trees, so we used to kind of play. We used to play the living room kind of. Not frequently, but enough.
Right. Were you headlining or supporting at this stage?
No, we were always supporting. So we kind of played with the Mary Chain quite a bit. There was a point where we were demoing, and Joe Foster basically came in to produce it, but he was completely off his box. And the whole thing just turned out to be a massive disaster because he just flipped all the channels up and turned on all the distortion pedals, and the Trees were not that sort of band. We were kind of a bit more Buffalo Springfield than anything else. That kind of birdsy sort of sound. So yeah, it didn't work, but but they were good times. They were really fun.
Well, absolutely. Did you ever record anything as The Trees?
Yeah.
Because it's not on your Discogs at all.
No. And never will be.
Right. So was it a self-published or
We just made demos, and the getting Joe to come in kind of on the back of playing the living room was kind of the closest we got to any sort of attention. And then Chris, who was a singer, went off to be a psychotherapist, and myself and Arch then went off to do the Herbs.
Yes, the Herbs. So then this was kind of like mid to middle 80 or the
mid to late 80s, yeah.
Yeah. So how come you waited so long for the Raw Herbs to appear?
Well, I got down there in '82, so I mean, it's just you. Kate and I were talking earlier, saying kind of the interesting thing about bands is you always get people who kind of generally write the stuff and push ahead, but unless you get the right people around you, it's kind of the magic kind of isn't there. So I think for me with the Herbs, that kind of worked really well. Other bands haven't worked so well. And I think with the Lovely Basement, we've kind of got a group of 4 people where we kind of play off each other. And you've, like, the other 2, Steve and Paul, might not write stuff, but they certainly pat into shape kind of things that we write. So they come up with kind of their bits, and it just works. Whereas I'm sure you could present the same songs to another group of people, and it just kind of wouldn't work, or would be limp, or just wouldn't have something. So I think kind of it takes time to find people that kind of everything gels with, really.
Is it more difficult as you get older? Because when you're in your first band, you probably take a punt on people that, you might form some fantastic sound, but personality-wise, it's a bit tricky.
Yeah, I kind of think it gets easier some ways as you get older, because you kind of, in some ways around writing and things, like when you're young, you're full of piss and vinegar and you want to be the next Stones or the next Birds or the next. And as you get older, you just kind of write songs that you like.
Right.
Mix stuff in a different way. So there is a freedom from thinking, this is, you're never going to make money from it. You're never going to get signed. And you kind of relax into kind of why you actually do it, which is because you write songs and you can't stop, and it's kind of fun, or it should be fun.
Into finding people as well. Like would be weird now to try and advertise for a bass player, or just some random person. You wait until you meet some, some people, and you kind of get to know them, and then you think, oh well, do you want to come around and play some songs? And it's a bit more organic, I think, really, because you don't got the pressure to kind of get something done. You just want to get something good done rather than anything done.
Yes. So when did the lovely basements start to be? When did that idea come about?
We've been playing because we moved to Toronto for kind of 9-10 years. And we're in a band there called Cool Trap Basement, which was kind of fun. And we kind of got back and wanted to just get something together again. Yeah, and then and like we were saying, we just found people to do it. I think the problem is, as you get older and you play music, you either stop or you don't. And if you don't, you then get to a point where you can't stop.
Right.
If you're writing songs, you kind of then want to stick them in front of people, or we do.
It's a calling.
Yeah,
Well, yes. Well, I guess you must have seen, and when I first started doing these interviews, there wasn't that much interest in indie pop from the 80s. It was and then suddenly something, perhaps it was COVID, but people were thinking and vibing the sudden interest, because suddenly the books are coming out left, right, and centre, aren't they? Compilations on Cherry Red Records. Everybody's getting their book archives. There's exhibitions. There's films being made about bands that only lasted 8 months. Even people have started making perfume based on bands from, especially 4AD, which was quite interesting. So it's kind of suddenly the 80s has become very sort of hip and interesting, but not the kind of the main narrative. It's that kind of the alternative indie world that seems to have been kind of fascinating to people. But also the people who made the music have a lot of sort of wanted to get back and do it again. I think they're slowly hitting that retirement period and thinking, this is it really. We need to do it all again, because this is the only thing I really loved.
Yeah, and people's kids have grown up and left home, so people who want to see shows, they got time now. They want to come out. They want to do something. I think. I mean, I don't really know. This is entirely supposition, but it just feels like, people have a bit more freedom and time now, and the people who are making the music, they got a bit more freedom and time, and it's just coming around again.
Yes. Well, so your first album you had was 2019, wasn't it? Just Because You Can. So when did you start writing the material for that?
Probably 2 years prior to that, I would have said. Depends on the song.
Yeah, I suspect it would have been pulling on some stuff we did in Canada, and then stuff we did kind of when we got here. So we're kind of always writing. So occasionally songs will follow us and get kind of refined, kind of over time. But I mostly thought it would have been like the year before, and a couple of old songs that we kind of wanted to keep doing. Mo Tucker being one of them.
Yeah.
Which had been a song that we wrote in Canada.
Yes, interesting, isn't it? Dear old Mo Tucker. Her Facebook page.
It was pre-Tea Party Mo Tucker, the song.
And when that did you at that point have a regular lineup at this point? Had you found your band?
Yes, I mean basically the lovely basement. It's the same group of people.
Yeah.
We've just kind of ploughed ahead.
Paul first,
then
Steve a bit later, but it's been pretty
consistent. It's just been the four of us doing it.
How did you navigate that lockdown period? Because obviously the album came out just the year before lockdown, and then suddenly the world changes and it all feels a bit sort of unstable. Did you then find your creative? Did you suddenly have time to start to be a bit more creative at that point, where we were sort of wondering what to do each day, each week, each month?
I can't remember it as being oddly. I can't remember it being hugely different. I kind of worked in the substance use field, so I was kind of running an outreach team. So my lockdown was actually kind of not very lockdowny, because I was kind of working with kind of homeless people and people kind of using various substances. So I just remember it being beautifully quiet once I wandered around Bristol. Which is kind of kind of odd. But I, to be honest, my memory of like the band and lockdown, I can't really remember.
I think what happened, I think the biggest change was that writing the songs got ahead of playing the songs, because the previous album we would sort of write and share and then like Kevin said, pat them into shape over a longer and more collective period of time. But with lockdown, it just, the writing carried on, and there was a lag between when we could present the songs to the fellas and be in person to play them through.
Yeah.
So there was a bit of even to this day, there's a bit of a catching up, because we still, we get together every week, but there's still a bit of the writing is still a little bit ahead, like the horse before the cart.
Yeah, we have a home studio, so it's really easy for us to write stuff,
Right.
And then the guys to come in and we'll start recording. And the one of the things I think about the modern way of recording, because it's all digital, is well, certainly kind of ourselves, we'll start doing demos because it's digital. Stuff just gets replaced. It's easy to replace stuff rather than recording something onto tape that then lives by itself, and then you go into a studio. So kind of, you asked us for rough mixes of stuff. We don't have them because they were just constantly being refined and things were being kind of changed. But you're right. Yeah, the way of writing shifted
together a bit more collectively, and then now it's a bit more like, oh, okay, now we just need a bit of this and a bit of that.
Yeah,
and
we hit our Beatles phase early.
Well, that's always simple. And do you enjoy playing live? Do you manage to sort of get out and record or perform in front of an audience?
Yeah, we kind of play around Bristol. We get to go to Spain once a year because the label for the last, not the album coming out, last album is Spanish. So we get to go to Spain and play, which is great.
And the album coming out is a joint production of the same label, No Aloha Records in Tarragona and Precious Recordings of London. So
it's more tricky for, a lot of the bands that kind of have reformed from the 80s, they have a name so they can go out and get gigs. If you're doing something that's totally kind of new, the Lovely Basement didn't exist then.
Yes.
Then it's more tricky to get gigs because you're a bunch of old farts. But we did get to play Glasgow's Pop, which was great, and we do get to kind of escape the orbit of Bristol kind of every now and again. We've got gigs, like we're playing next week, we're in London. A couple of weeks after that, we're in Birmingham, and when we get some reviews, we're hoping to kind of play further afield.
Yes.
We still play live, still enjoy it.
Which is quite, because I noticed you've got a festival next May in Greece, Athens.
Yeah, we're playing in Athens. Yeah.
Which is quite impressive. Actually, there's quite a few of these kind of weekends. There's another one in Germany who seems obsessed with little indie labels and bands. Which is yes, and the one that you mentioned as well in Britain as well, which was quite.
Glasgow's Pop is just the most beautiful experience. It's 2 days of just this lovely experience, everyone loving each other. It's marvelous.
What I could imagine.
And there'll be Wales Goes Pop in April that we're going to play at as well. Don't think it's all been announced yet, except for Heavenly as a headliner on Saturday night.
Right. God, there was the Catenary Wires with Brian Bilston was playing, touring at the moment, aren't they? They were in Norwich on last Monday. So it was very exciting. Yes, like I said, there's quite a lot of interest in that sort of world. Just going back to your experience with the raw herbs, because you didn't last long, did you?
I don't know. I think we lasted. We lasted 4 years, I think.
Right, but you didn't.
I'm really bad with time, but I think it was 3 or 4 years.
But you were on the famous Medium Cool Records, weren't you, at that stage?
It didn't feel famous Medium Cool Records at the time. I'm not sure now, but yes, with the lovely Andy who sadly left us. So.
Yes, well, that was because I think they had quite a good. They had the Corn Dollies and the Waltons, and another one which was one of those ones that John Peel loved as well, which I can't remember.
They had the Enormous Room, who
the Sidleys. That was the band,
and the Rain, and I think that possibly was it. But it was a nice little label.
Yeah. So you lasted. Was it you formed in '86 and went to Did you make it into the 90s?
No. I think we made it to, I think we formed, I really am bad with chronologies. I just don't say. I think we formed in 85, but this all could be wrong. And then I think we got to 89. I left in 89 to move to Bath. And the Herbs kind of got somebody else in and I think lasted about 8 months after that because Brian had gone by then as well. So in my mind, it's not the Herbs.
Yes. Do you still listen to Don't Bury Me Yet?
I actually love the Herb stuff. I'm immensely proud of it. And we, at that period of time, we've got on really, really well. We don't get on so well since then, but that time it was great. So no, I absolutely adore the Herbs, and I think it's kind of. I don't listen to the Herbs that often. I did make myself a CD of stuff at one point, but whenever I hear it, I'm kind of really proud of it. I think
you've only put out singles. You never did an album, did you?
We did. We did a compilation of all the singles and the B-sides for an American label that immediately went bust. So there was kind of the curse of the raw Herbs. It felt that every time we kind of moved to do something, things went wrong. We made the mistake of trying to run our own record label via Revolver in Bristol, and that wasn't we weren't good at that.
No. Was that Rooster Records then? Was that?
Yeah, that was Rooster. Yeah.
Right, and that was it. On that world, because it's one of those ones that I'm always puzzled by, the ownership and publishing. How does that all work with a band, by the way? Who owns the publishing? Who wrote the music? Who has the master tapes?
It with the Herbs, it's kind of weird because Cherry Red say they own it all, but I didn't. Andy Wake basically went off touring with. I can't remember the band he went off touring with. No, it's gone. And left the label in the hands of somebody else who sold the catalogue to Cherry Red. So when Cherry Red started releasing our stuff, I got in contact with them and they said, well, we own everything. And they didn't because we paid for all our recordings. But I was just thinking this one, I'm not going to hire solicitors. Two, if they're releasing stuff, I'd rather people heard it. So we just came to a weird agreement that we disagreed and they carry on releasing things because I'd rather people heard it than anything else. So
yes,
yeah, I think you it's like those stories of the 60s about bands and kind of who owned what and people getting producer credits. I think kind of the 80s were full of people just taking things on trust and it all gets complicated. And
it is. I still find it all a bit of a murky and a bizarre world, really.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, no one makes money, I'm sure, from any of this.
Did you ever get a royalty check for the Herbs?
Yeah, get royalty checks. Kind of. I think we got about 20 pence. Kind of last. The Herbs wasn't an earner, and the band itself racked up quite a lot of debt. So I suspect the debt that we racked up has still yet to be paid at 20 pence every quarter or whatever PRS do. It's going to take a bit of time.
Yes, yeah, well, that's not going to be your pension pot, is it really? So there you
Hopefully
go.
not.
So talking then back to the latest, because you've got a new release coming up, haven't you,
Yeah.
with the band, which is titled Lowlands.
Yep.
There you go. So yes. So when did this start getting recorded?
This is
Probably about
a year and a bit back.
Yeah.
So it kind of again it was we were writing the stuff and then kind of meeting up kind of in the studio to kind of get bits and pieces sorted. So we had hoped to get it out earlier, but it didn't happen because we wanted to do it through Noah Lower and they got a release schedule.
Takes a long time to get vinyl out anyway.
Yeah. So we're actually having to relearn the songs because
right.
So yeah, it went off for mastering. I think in July. I think so. Yeah, so it doesn't feel so new to us, but
yes. So you had the one single out so far, haven't you? Cornstalk Girl.
Yeah.
What was the process of writing and recording that? When did that sort of inspiration appear?
That's a good question. I mean, we tend to go music first, and then lyrics kind of follow. Um, Lyrically, Kate and I kind of bounce ideas off each other, and we'll share kind of bits of the lyric writing, or Kate will do most of it. I'm kind of more interested in the music side of things. So I would say Cornstalk Girl started off with a cider with Rosie type of idea,
Right.
that there are points in time where things kind of start to completely change. So Cider with Rosie being, marvelous about how the kind of countryside changes with kind of agriculture, kind of mechanization coming in, and the story of corn dollies is that you used to plough them in at the beginning of a season, and at the end of a season, you'd collect the last bushel and make a corn dolly, stick it in the church, look after the spirits of the field, because you've got that pagan Christian thing going, and then return it. And with mechanization, you just clear a whole field, and that went out the window. And then Kate's take on it was kind of different. So it's a song of many meanings. Your take?
Yes, that's a fascinating. I sort of was part of quite a hippie, new agey world, and people used to love making corn dollies. I didn't really understand the whole pagan side of it. Actually,
Yeah.
I feel bad now. I'm gonna have to Google this.
The image we found for that, I think, is really lovely because it's a photograph taken in 1902. And did you colorize it, or did you find a colorized version of it?
The internet colorized it.
The internet colorized. It's just, I love the fact that it's quite eerie, but also quite kind of compelling. I think she's beautiful, that particular corn dolly. She's very gorgeous with her weird hair head thing. And I think it's really, yeah, for me I mean, the song ended up being written in her voice, really, as she sort of just looks at the religion that took over and just said, your time will come. They'll forget about you. They're a fickle bunch.
Well, yes, we do love our ley lines and spiritual sort of happenings, don't we? So yes, it's quite a beautiful song. And what about your follow-up, the fifth column? Not the follow-up single, but the second track on the album. What's the process, and what was the kind of story behind that one?
That one was, the music came really early, and that
Yeah.
was it seems like every album there's a song that just resists lyrics. And on the last one it was that Lee Raymond.
Yeah.
But this one, it was fifth column, and it went through many iterations and many subjects, and just eventually one day it popped out as fifth column, which is broadly about just the trickiness of language and how it you have to be careful what you say, not because I don't know, it's really I struggle to explain it sometimes. It basically, it's not about I'm failing. It's just, there's a lot of things in language that are just, I guess, idioms or expressions, or you just start talking and they seem like really meaningless things, like, oh, you're my hero or something. But there's so much culture attached to that. And if you're actually trying to unthink some of the things that we accept as dominant culture, it's worth actually scrutinizing some of the things you say, like calling somebody baby. Well, what does that mean? It's kind of this whole
Creepy.
patriarchy and everything attached to all of it. So yeah,
Yes.
in a whimsical little lyric.
No, it's kind of weird, isn't it? Because we grew up with those songs in the 70s where the word "you're my baby" or "be my baby" was, and it is, yes, you think actually that they don't quite work anymore, do they? They just feel a bit odd.
About it too long.
No, but yes, they don't age, they don't. And your last track, "Goodbye," can you remember the process that had coming together?
That was the smoother one, wasn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah, that one almost wrote itself. One of those
Yeah.
ones that just kind of, hello, here I am.
I mean, both of those. I mean, interestingly, you just mentioned two songs where I'm kind of doing the music and Katie's doing the lyrics. So those
Yes.
are Katie lyric ones.
And they're pure Kevin music.
I can relax.
Does that help? Does that help the process if you keep that kind of balance together?
I don't know really. I mean, you often start a lyric and then you get fed up and I carry on and actually kind of do better if with a bit of direction. And sometimes it's harder when you got anything to choose a direction from. But in that case, again, that was just it just went, oh, this song is about that, and it came out. Some of them will do that. So
Does the music side come from you sitting at a piano, or is it the guitar that you use?
I'm a guitar obsessive, so I think with this album and perhaps the earlier album, and going back to what I was saying kind of earlier about being full of piss and vinegar when you're young and thinking you're creating stuff and it's all new and it's all great, is you'll spend hours trying to figure out chord structures and things, and perhaps not kind of be very good at that. But I think as you get older, you kind of appreciate how songs are structured. So a lot of the songs on the last two albums, especially, I'd say, are really quite simple in their chord structures, because I think one of the realizations for me has been, the chords are great and blah, blah, blah. It's what you build on top. So if you want to learn any of our songs, they're not difficult. The difficult bit is more kind of all the other stuff that's going on and some of the syncopation between the rhythms and the twangy bits. So,
did you work with John Parrish, the famous?
We did, and it was delightful.
Because he's got one amazing CV, hasn't he? Because I was kind of excited to interview him because of his kind of production and producing of all these indie bands, and it was like, oh, you also play with PJ Harvey, but he did the Sidleys as well, actually, though he'd completely forgot about it and thought I must update my website because obviously he hasn't recently. What was it like working with John?
a dream.
Yes,
He's just such a easygoing guy.
Yeah.
And we went over and drank a cup of tea and went to his basement and soothed his cat. And,
he was recording the vocals, so Katie was singing and I was stroking the cat to try and stop it from meowing in the studio space.
Nice. God, that must have been very enjoyable, actually, having that kind of...
It's a nice cat.
It's a lovely cat. And it's just amazing to watch him work because he's just so, he's really focused.
Yeah.
And it's just, stuff that, it's a thing of beauty.
Yes, well, it sounds. And just going back to the album, Black Jumper On. Can you remember this process? How does that evolve itself and come about?
So with all the songs, generally the music is first. But an auntie of Kate's died, who I'd never met. And we went to the funeral, and I actually don't own a suit. I do, but it's my mother's, which is kind of gruesome because it's waiting for her.
Suit? Oh, you mean it's not her suit?
No, it's not her suit. It's waiting at me mum's. And the only thing I had was a black jumper to wear that looked kind of vaguely respectable with some black Levi's. So being part of the family grouping, I was kind of down the front. So the song is just the strangeness of being at this massively personal kind of event, not knowing the person who is part of the event, or the main focus of the event, and also feeling vaguely disrespectful. You kind of look like a dude who's just walked off the street. So that was kind of the starting point, and then you kind of
we just embellish it a bit. But it is about how lives you may know nothing about, they still have their own importance and depth. And
it was kind of wandering into this thing where you don't know this person from Adam. They are obviously loved. They have been a central point of something, and you oddly are a spectator at that event. This massively personal event by just pure kind of deed or circumstance of being included in a family that in lots of ways you're actually not part of.
Yes, no, it is kind of weird, isn't it? I mean,
a meditation on life, perhaps. But
yes, well, absolutely, and realising what decades they lived through and what they would have seen as well is always quite sort of humbling and interesting because, seeing old photographs of people that you thought, God, there wasn't even cars or communication was just letters and postcards. It was and telegrams probably, but nothing else. So, yes, the older generation have lived through so much.
Yeah, she had a big, proper, important life. It's just she wasn't a famous person, so no one gets to know about that other than the family and the dude that gets dragged in wearing his black jumper.
Yes, thinking, take the black shades off. Because it would have been, you'd probably look very cool actually on that point. So what about Rest Now Lucy? What's that story and what's the background to that track?
Oh, well, that's I I work sort of at Bristol Archives. I'm not an archivist, but I was running a project at that time that was Bristol Archives holds the patient records of what used to be called the Bristol Lunatic Asylum. And we ran this project where we brought people with mental health problems. They each got to select a patient record from the Bristol Lunatic Asylum and research that person. The Lunatic Asylum was, well, it's still there with a different name now, but the records that the people chose were from the late 1800s, and actually the Lunatic Asylum was really progressive, and people, it was so Lucy Cheney was one of the records, and she moved me because a lot of them had a little photograph of the patient, and they looked weirdly a little bit. She looked a bit like my mum, but most of the patients were just people who'd lived lives of such grinding poverty that you could live
Yes.
days. Like, she came from the slum, and her life had basically ground her down to being she wasn't talking, she wasn't doing anything, and the asylum gives her good food 3 days a week, clean clothes, a bed of her own, which she probably never had in her life, some gentle occupation to do with her day, just all these really gentle, supportive things that we would think now of really good treatment. And yeah, and eventually she recovered and was released. But I just can't imagine
Released to what?
released
Yeah.
back to the slum. Must have been a bit like, oh, great, thanks for making me feel everything again. I was quite happy not feeling anything. So yeah, I don't know. It was a really, really interesting project. And yeah, it was only later on when mental health care became more brutal with more
More invasive. Right?
yeah, more invasive, more medicinal, early medicine kind of intervention and ECT and stuff.
Yes. Was that a hard song to sing? Did you find that quite a difficult one to sort of evoke the emotion of it?
No, well, I think it's not from Lucy's point of view, so it's more sympathetic. So it wasn't like having to try and. I can't imagine being her. I must have been a very different. I don't know what it's like to grow up in a slum in the late 1800s, but I can't imagine. It's really fun.
I think an interesting thing about that song as well is we had some music that was kind of written in a verse chorus with this kind of section that where the music actually kind of breaks down, just becomes kind of a bit of a noise, and then kind of pulls itself back together again. And we had that, and it was kind of, well, what does that suggest as a lyric? And then Kate was doing this project, and it was like, actually, that's perfect. It's actually perfect for the life of Lucy, with that kind of just decomposition almost in the middle of it.
I think also the Lunatic Asylum's weird, I wouldn't call it a claim to fame, but Archie
Leach?
Leach, Cary Grant. He was told when he was a child that his mother had died, but in fact she was carted off the lunatic asylum, probably with postpartum depression. There was a lot of women in there with postpartum depression, and then he realized that she was actually alive several years later. But the record of his mother is still, her patient record is still at Bristol Archives.
God, that is very emotional, isn't it? Blimey, that is. And when dust patterns, what's the kind of story behind this one? Is that a similar one?
Well, it's about capitalism, David. When I was a kind of teenager, I worked after school, I'd get driven up to a pottery factory outside of Bridgnorth, and I'd clean it. So I just kind of dust it down. So this place during the day would be kind of busy and bustling and making money for the two guys that owned it. And when everybody fucked off, it was empty, and I'd be sweeping away. And I just kind of remember being there thinking, without the people who actually do the work, this is nothing. It's just absolutely nothing. So kind of, and the other thing was I'd be sweeping away and be loads of dust, and the sunlight would just play in the dust would play in the sunlight. It was actually really quite a nice job. It's very relaxing sweeping up in a pottery factory. But it's basically a song about capitalism and kind of the way that we kind of don't value work, and the idea is that the people who have kind of the money to invest and create something have created it, and that's actually, again, it's way more collective than that. So dust patterns really is just a reflection on.
I thought that's kind of inspired from something that happened 45 years ago. Then
yes.
that's
yeah, I mean the imagery, yeah, but then we were talking earlier, it's that kind of allegory thing, isn't it? You are wanting to say capitalism is a bit shit because the profit isn't shared properly. How do I say that in a song? Because I'm not Billy Bragg, I can't do it face on. So you then look for something that you can put that message in, you can bundle it up in. And the potty factory just always stayed with me because it was so alive until the bell went, everyone went home, and I came in and swept.
Yes, well, absolutely. I once worked when I was very young in Metfield Bakery, and again, that making something that was going out every day, and then sort of, yes, I mean, it was you just couldn't have a day off, you couldn't have a moment off. You had to, even if you were ill, you still had to turn up and do the business because there was no plan B. You couldn't just phone in sick. It was quite weird. But again, I never felt so productive in my life because a lot of jobs you can just sort of faff about doing things, having meetings, whereas when you're in one of those jobs, it's like productivity, isn't it?
And it's profit.
Yes, someone hopefully gets something. And then Small Fleas, interesting title. What's that one? How does this come about?
I hand over to Kitty.
Well, no, you started that one.
Did I?
Yeah, I think we were reading.
Yes.
We were reading books simultaneously. Who is that guy? Tchaikovsky, Adrian Tchaikovsky, for one thing, the science fiction writer. But we're just thinking, yes, fuck. We try to be too smart sometimes because we're not. But it involves ideas of sentience.
Yeah, it was supposed to be from the perspective of part of your gut biome.
Yeah, that didn't work out.
My God, have you been on the Zoe, app?
Yeah, well, that was probably that. I think we've been reading about how stuff like your gut biome affects your mood, and all the research that's coming out about the fact.
And the Sheldon Mandrake book about fungi and mycelial networks, and we were just thinking kind of that idea that you take our gut biome completely out, we can't survive. Because we can't break food down. So what actually are we? We're an amalgam of different things.
We're not one thing.
Yeah, and we're just thinking, if you could write a song from the perspective of a gut biome, that'd be pretty cool. Which we didn't because we're not smart enough. But we came up with something else, which is partly the story of the band. We always come up with something else.
Yeah, that's true. So So the idea is just throwing a bunch of things in. What perspective? Who's in charge? At what point do you start the story? It gives you a different ending.
Yes, well, it's always interesting. I mean, we make our own kombucha now because of that whole world of, gut bio, because it suddenly had exactly read the same things, and to Tim Spector, and thought perhaps we need to sort of up our game. We've got to that age; we can't take it for granted anymore.
And just the idea that stuff in your gut can affect your mood, which is just
extraordinary.
We think we are the creators of the things we do, but
we think we're so smart. Rubbish.
We're just very lucky, aren't we, that we weren't born in the 1800s, really? Because we would all be in I'd be in a workhouse or dead.
But our diet would have been healthier if we had a bit of choice. If we had a diet, if it wasn't just potatoes.
I think if it was the post-war period where we had rations, that was probably the healthiest.
Oh my God, that generation, they're built like fucking tanks, aren't they? Because they ate so well, like mum and my mum, and they just soldiered on.
Yes, but I always got boggled when you looked at the cheese and went, that's not much for a day? And it's like, no, that's for their week. That's why their cholesterol weren't that high, was it really? It's like, that's and mostly wrong then. Interesting title. What was this one?
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's. The idea. So we go and see a lot of bands, and quite often I feel like I'm seeing all the bands I saw at the living room again, and it's young people full of piss and vinegar and blah blah blah, and that's great. But I kind of feel like I've done that and seen that. So that kind of was a vaguely the starting point of the song, is that you go and see something and you think, oh yeah, great, yeah, I love that and I love this, but you go home and you listen to the records of the original things. Like if you'd gone to the living room, you could have just gone home really and listened to the Velvets, the Byrds, the Stones, and the Kinks. They were the original
print, yes.
Yeah. So it was partly about that, and partly about the beauty of the arrogance of youth, that you just think you are the first thing. You just absolutely, believe that you are the pinnacle of, and you've created this kind of all yourself. And you should be like that when you're like, it's a point of being in your early 20s to be that kind of arrogant. If you can't be an asshole when you're in your 20s, it's not so good when you're older. So that was kind of, I would say that was kind of my take. And then you had more of a take around gender, really.
Well, this is also, well, we both discussed that, but like just when you're young, and I guess, you think you're great or whatever, you don't understand whose shoulders you're standing on necessarily. You haven't been through your parents' record collection or their grandparents' record collection, and you don't know about Sister Rosetta Tharpe, and you don't know about Carol Kay, and you don't know about particularly women that have been whitewashed or just removed from rock and roll history, but just in general, like how there is a heritage, and you might think you created something new, but I don't really think there's anything new to be had in rock and roll. There's just freshness maybe, but newness is a lot to ask from something that has been, is often structured around 3 or 4 chords, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just there's a beauty in the variation of it. But to think, I think it is a bit arrogant to think that you're doing something completely new and exciting and fresh. And there are some, there are fresh takes on it. There's always something new and wonderful coming out of it. But I think you have to take it with a bit of humility, because you are really building on the shoulders of so many people that have gone before you. But again, it comes back to what we were saying earlier, that irrespective of how much of a sense of the depth of the heritage you have, you can't stop. You might go, oh, well, I'm just being iterative and repetitive, and what's the point? But you have to keep doing it. And we nearly called the album Something Like a Calling, because that was an artist friend of mine said to me once, he's like, I wish I could stop doing this, but I just can't. It's like a calling. And I thought, oh yeah, that's exactly what it feels like. You can't. It just keeps getting drawn out of you, whether you want to let it happen or not. And so that's the chorus, really. It sort of zooms out a bit and just goes, yeah, but it's just going to keep happening, because it's something in us that just has to keep happening.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Did you take quite a while to get the track listing on the album? Did you sort of work around the sort of sequencing of the material?
There's an interesting thing, because if you're doing a CD, you can just do the 10 tracks, or whatever, how you want to do them. If you're doing vinyl, you have to structure it all differently, because you don't want a song with a lot of kind of energy as a last track, because the needle will bounce out the groove. So you do have to think about how you kind of put vinyl albums together. So I think, I'm not sure we spend like a huge amount of time, but we are mindful of wanting to get it so that it physically kind of works, kind of with
I think we had all the
technology.
songs on Post-it notes and did a physical exercise of moving them around collectively, all 4 of us, and we ended up with a reasonably happy. Yeah, no, that's.
You must be delighted. I mean, it does sound, I mean, it's beautifully produced and sort of put together, and it's got a great sonic vibe to it. So you must be very pleased. Because did you say you record most of it in your home studio, apart from your vocals?
Yeah, yes, we do. This time around, so Andy from the Loft kind of went to college with him big mate. And he was great with this album because I was chatting with him and he was saying, why don't you get John to do the vocals this time round? Because you're having to do them in the house, which is not great.
A bit intimidating.
Yeah. And I was like, John would never. Yeah, John lives down the road. And I was all like, I don't think he would. And Andy, because John's been to see us live a few times, and Andy was like, I'll phone him. So Andy phoned him and got him to, John said yes, and which was great. And then kind of when we were looking for a partner for Noah Loa for the Spanish label, and Andy was like, well, why don't you ask Nick from Precious? And I was like, well, I don't think Nick would. Andy went, fuck it, I'll phone him. So Andy phoned him and sorted that out. So there's actually a dedication to Andy on the record because he managed to help us so much. Mainly because I don't believe anybody will like anything we do, I think.
And he put us in touch with Sean.
Oh, yeah, Sean, who did the mastering, Sean Reed. Yeah. And Sean was great. And pre-mastered, I think it sounds really good. What Sean did to it just is that it's like varnishing wood. All the grain came out. It looks, really lovely. So it sounds really lovely. So I think we were really lucky.
Yes.
To kind of have Andy be a good mate, really. Yeah.
The invisible hand of Andy Strickland.
Yeah.
Well, I know it's quite beautiful actually. There's some things in life are wonderful, aren't they? And this kind of community of people who are sort of helping each other. And probably in the early days, everyone's got that kind of, I don't know, we'll just live in our little bubble in a way and be a little bit competitive to each other. But as everyone's got a little bit older, not everyone, but a lot of people are just like, oh yeah, I'll just give you a hand, don't worry about it, and it's quite gorgeous really. And all these bands that probably thought each other were being a bit odd are just like, well, we were just a bit shy, so we didn't speak to you at that gig, or and stuff like that. So it's really nice to hear, isn't it?
Yeah. It is.
And Bristol's kind of really nice for that. There's a guy called Tim Rippington who played briefly in the Flatmates and does Charlie Tipper. Played in the Beat Film Stars as well. And Tim has just been, we got here and we were trying to get gigs and organise stuff, and Tim was just so helpful and lovely, and he should be Sir Rippington.
He should be.
He absolutely should be.
He's Councillor Rippington.
He is Councillor Rippington, but he should be Sir Rippington.
Did he come from Norwich?
No, he's just outside Bristol.
I know the name just sounded really familiar, and I thought, God, is he?
As
Rob Percy from Heavenly. So Tim and Rob go back together, and we're in the 5-year plan together.
Right.
Them again. So Bristol's a small place, and a lot of the people in bands kind of have been in bands with each other in all sorts of different kind of variations. So you got Davey Woodward kind of being with lots of people from I'm failing to think of the band.
The Brilliant Corners.
Yeah, yes. Brilliant Corners, and loads of people from the Groove Farm and the Flatmates kind of popping about. And they all know each other. So if you're coming in from the outside, it can be a bit tricky to get into that. But Tim totally kind of invited us in to kind of like a much older scene of people who are really supportive and pitch up for the gigs. And
he runs a little label kind of, doesn't he?
Yeah, like, the first 2 albums on a little label, he does.
Are the Chesterfields in your area as well? Or they...
They're further south, so down towards Yeovil. So, because Andy played with the Chesterfields so as well. So,
Just Thingy Barber, Simon Barber, does he still live in Bristol?
No, he lives south still.
Yeah, Simon, what a guy, what a band, God, what a sound. I love the Chesterfield so much. But Subway organisation, are they on their own within this community then?
The labels seem to have disappeared. So, so they have gone. The bits of the bands remain. Very at different times we'll meet up and form a band, and then poodle off, and then meet up and form different bands. And
did you buy Jane Duffus's book on Sarah Records, The History of Sarah?
No, I'm not a huge fan of Sarah.
You just gave me a large box of books back from Glasgow's pub.
Yes, but we did facilitate her selling them.
Yes, we did.
Well, that's nice. It's good to be there, isn't it? And actually, I do think Nick, should get, some sort of honour. I'm not sure from the royal family now, but for services to music, because his label, Precious Recordings,
Yeah, no,
have been one of the
yeah,
highlights of
brilliant.
our life,
Yeah.
really.
He's a lovely man too, just to round
So,
out.
so you can get your album on the Precious Recording via their website, basically.
You could come
their
to our
Bandcamp.
you could come to our website, which links into theirs. So you could buy it via us, but it goes to them, or you can just go straight to them and buy it, or you can come to a gig and buy it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Or European, you should buy it from Noah Loa because then you don't have to pay a nasty Brexit import duties.
Yeah, or you could wait 5 years and buy it from a charity shop.
Yeah, or eBay.
God, I made a mistake once or twice waiting too long, and then it's sold out, and then and then you look on eBay and it's some ridiculous price. And you think,
Yeah.
God, you kick yourself. But you haven't got that many copies left from here. You've only got 37 from the Precious Recordings. Is this your limited edition 12-inch vinyl?
It's
It is.
yeah. I mean, it's limited edition because small bands don't press more than kind of 200. So there's as we did 250, I think.
Yeah,
There's
we got 150 and No Aloha as
in
100.
Spain got 100.
Yeah, Geordie's a lovely guy, but like Precious, No Aloha is basically Geordie. They both have long-suffering partners who don't mind their houses filling up with boxes of unsold records, and just a musical enthusiast. Geordie's a lovely, lovely guy.
And if people are listening to this, go and check out other Spanish bands on No Aloha because it's a really lovely label. It's a really good label.
They've got a band
Yes.
called this. Well, next, I think the next one is going to be Standby Connection, which is a great band from Valencia that really extraordinary, actually.
Yeah. And Geordie's band, I can't say because it's Spanish.
Islandia Nunca Quema.
There we are, are really grand as well. Yeah.
I know I'm the same. I just think, oh, I'm going to murder this word, aren't I? It's not going to be good. It's going to be embarrassing. But yes, I do remember John Peel used to stumble over a lot of African names as well. So you just have to do it. So your next gig, so to find out more about your life in music, is your Facebook page is very good, isn't it?
Yeah, Facebook and Instagram, we pop things up. And if anybody book us who hears this, we're available.
I'm available
for weddings and bar mitzvahs and funerals. So
yes, dress appropriately. You can
like jumpers all around.
That's right.
My God! So with your one going to Athens in May next year,
Yes.
are these? What are they? Well, how do they compare when from say the one you did in Glass? Was it Glass Pop?
Glasgow's
Pop. I don't know. I guess we'll find out when we get.
Yeah, I mean the thing with Glasgow's Pop is we got to play with Jerry Love and the Bluebells, so kind of it's quite a big profile. The Athens it's more international and it's a bit more kind of low key indie.
However, we have noticed that they've always had a Bristol band. I think this is their 4th or 5th year, and so
we're the token Bristol band.
A couple of months. Just emailed them and said, "Hey, I see your lineup doesn't have a Bristol band yet."
Yes, we did. Yes,
and we're like, "Yeah, we were going to get in touch." So that was really nice.
Well, absolutely. And do you have any other festivals lined up or in the pipeline for
Pop, which is the 3rd, 4th, and 5th? I think that Easter weekend in the beginning of April. I don't think it's been entirely announced yet, except for the fact that Heavenly is the headliner on the Saturday night for that.
Yeah, and now's the time where we're sending stuff out to other kind of festivals to try and get stuff.
We got a couple more shows with the Loft next year as well in May 8th and 9th.
Which would be fun.
Yes, well, I think this is all very exciting, actually, and thank you. Yes, for I think I can't remember. It might have been Nick sort of sent me the MP3s of the album, so that was brilliant. And you're also on various streaming sites as well as Bandcamp, aren't you?
Yes,
we are.
Yes, and Ian Coe has been very kind to us, so he's been playing stuff, which is grand.
God, that's brilliant. I'm glad that Six Music is still out there trying to keep it going.
God bless them.
God bless them. Because there isn't really... Because in our, 80s time, we had the 3 weekly music papers, as well as John Peel, Janice Long.
Yeah.
There was those kind of, they knew... They were just very good kind of gatekeepers and people who, just put on a scene, which I think was just brilliant, really. They... Yes, they engineered it all very well. So we took it all for granted, didn't we, back in those days?
I think so, frankly, yeah. And it just felt like you had a target to go for because it was three music papers, Peel and Janis. Whereas kind of now trying to get yourself out there, it's really tricky because how do you do that? And we're old, which is the other thing. So
But too fine a
no,
point of
but
it.
it's the industry isn't interested in that.
Yeah.
So it is.
The industry eats artists.
Yeah, there is this cottage industry of people kind of who still want to play music, and it's good music. I mean, if it's shit music, that'd be something else. But it actually really, there's some corking stuff out there.
Well, I would imagine when you get back to your rehearsing or doodling, it's really good fun thinking up that next moment and seeing you can make that classic kind of sequence of chords that you just think that is genius.
Yeah.
Or
We
the lyric, or or anything, it's just one of those things. Does that, the creative process, is that something that you often ponder? What makes that record so brilliant that we listen to it decades later? Because when you break it down, you think, what is that? Because, when you listen to, say, T-Rex, on one level, you think this is brilliant, but on another, you think it's almost like nursery rhymes as well. It's like, why does that work or why does this work? Do you contemplate those existential moments?
I think music itself is weird. I mean, why? But it feels like one of the most human things we can possibly do. But we must have been doing it since even before we were properly Homo sapiens. Like there's just something innate about it. But when you think like, why should we? Why should we want to sing? Like, what's wrong with talking? Why should we want a rhythm? Why should we want to create other sounds? I think it's fascinating that we make music and yeah, I don't know. I don't get it, but it's one of my favorite things about being a human being.
Yeah.
Well, yes, absolutely. No, yes, I often wonder what people did back there before we could even record and anybody sort of made any notes about what people did. I guess drumming would have been very popular.
Yeah.
And chanting, yes, but that sounds like a hippie festival, doesn't it, at Glastonbury? So there you go. But look, thank you ever so much for your time. This has been
Pleasure.
amazing. And if you want, I can always send you the link. And yes, you can use it on any of your social media platform sites. But yes, well, good luck for the next couple of gigs and the album coming out and next year. But yeah, thanks for your time again. It's been amazing.
Yeah, pleasure. Cheers,
Take
David.
care. Cheers.
Yeah. Bye then.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. And that, dear listener, is the end of the interview. A massive thank you to Katie and Kevin for giving me the time for that. As I said, they have this new album coming out, which is titled Lowlands, The Lovely Basement. But I'll put a link in the notes below. This has been the C86 Show. David Eastaugh. If you want to contact me, you can on any of the social media platform sites. Just do C86 Show. And all these interviews have been archived on Spotify, iTunes, Podbeam. Check them out. Anyway, have a great week. Stay safe.